Yo, hi. Episode number 99. It's the Gretzky episode. It's one-on-one with the great one. That's The Rock, just so you know, because I love The Rock. Mikey hates wrestling, but I love wrestling, but that's okay. We're here with our boy Scott from Cryptodira. Awesome band out of Long Island. We're super stoked to have you, man. What's going on, bud?
What's up, guys? I'm having a great day. Hockey's back. The Islanders are playing, and they're doing well.
Yes, sir. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all you can hope for. Obviously, when this episode drops, will be right now. It's the 14th, but this episode will drop, I think, on what is it, the 19th, right?
That sounds good, Tom.
Yeah. But okay, great. So, we'll be far removed from what. I don't want to call it yet, but as of right now, all three of us are sitting watching this Islander game, and we have the game steadily in hand, which feels great because we are playing the Rangers. And I have a lot of friends that are Ranger fans that are sitting at home, probably super pissed, and that makes me feel good.
And right now,
so I'm into it.
It's the future, and it's the 19th, and some Rangers fan is listening to this and going, "Those stupid assholes have no idea what's about to happen in the second and third period."
Yep, that's exactly what they're saying. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, look at these guys. The Rangers going to end up winning 13-3."
Yeah.
My
sure.
God.
13-3 is absolutely what I'm putting my money on. So
Honestly, if this was the Islanders 5 years ago, I would believe that. But this is the Barry Trotz New York Islanders, and usually when we just get to 3 goals, like the percentage of us winning is like ridiculous. So I feel good.
It's out of control. Yeah, for sure.
I feel good.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. I mean, we're super stoked that hockey's back. I mean, it's great to see. We have the divisions realigned, and it's going to be a little bit different than usual. We're going to be playing a lot of the same teams a lot, but good thing about that is I think it's going to develop rivalries at a much more frenetic pace. Even looking at tonight's the game that we're experiencing now with the Rangers. Over the past couple of years, with the Rangers not really being contenders and the Islanders being contenders, which is strange to say. I would love to say it, but it's strange to say. But that kind of the flames of that rivalry sort of started to get less stoked. But now that we're playing each other 8 times, I think it's going to be good for hockey, and especially not just the Rangers, but the rivalry with the Devils, the Flyers, the Penguins, the Capitals. It's all going to get stoked, and I love that.
Yeah, I honestly like, and even though the Islanders have been the better team for a couple of years now, there's still this weird like shadow over them, at least with like NHL pundits or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this immediate excitement around the Rangers with the draft lottery and obviously some like league success last year and everything, where I'm even seeing some people sort of already put them back in that same conversation, whether that's fair or not. But I think it's gonna definitely ramp up this year for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think the other cool thing about, you talking about all of those kind of experts, that are always talking about the Islanders, and they did it last year and saying that the Capitals were just going to run us over. I remember watching pre-games and everyone was like, yeah, Caps in 4, Caps in 5. And, and then before you knew it, we were the stronghold team. And then all of a sudden everyone picked the Islanders to beat the Flyers. So just kind of funny how that works. But I love it, man. Give us all the adversity, man. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'd always prefer to be that team than the one who's got all the pressure on them. So I would love to be the team that shouldn't win all the way to a Stanley Cup. I have no problem being that team.
And I think we'll always be that team, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
it
would take another dynasty to reverse that, like a modern era. Like that's really, I think the only thing that would even remotely kind of reverse that would be like a Blackhawks style thing. But that's hard to come by in a modern NHL.
Sure is. So, Scott, I want to jump right into it, and I kind of want to hear some of your background growing up on Long Island in the hardcore scene or metal scene or whatever you want to call it scene. Whereabouts on Long Island are you?
So my whole band is from, like, I guess most people will call like out east. We don't consider it out east, but we are from Mount Sinai, which is like right next to Port Jeff, which I think is more like a larger landmark for people. Port Jeff Miller Place, Rocky Point, Mount Sinai. So we're pretty far out there on the North Shore, and so we were kind of removed from the scene. We were really just like a bunch of gigantic prog nerds because Mike's dad got us into Dream Theater when we were kids. And like we grew up like in the same high school, middle school and stuff, and actually elementary school. Really, I've known Matt, our drummer, since we were 6 years old. So we're 27 and 28 now. Mike, I've known our guitar players since we were about 10 years old. So we've just been friends for way too long. So we kind of grew up on like the same classic rock and that kind of stuff, and punk rock, and then new metal and whatever else was popular at the time. But then Mike's dad just like screwed us up by giving Mike a Dream Theater CD. It was Dream Theater's Train of Thought. And then he gave that to all of us, and we were like, dude, these long songs. The dudes are absolutely ripping. Everyone in the band knows how to play their instrument. Like, this is no longer like the glamorous sort of like, I don't know, singer and guitar player music. This is suddenly everybody music. Everybody in the band is like a virtuoso. So that like changed our entire perception of music and like what you're allowed to do within a song.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of like harkens back to what, like metal and hardcore was quote unquote supposed to be, like in the 2000s. Like, we've talked about it before in the podcast, but a lot of times, while Long Island it tends to be now very inclusive, Long Island, I remember growing up, was very segregated in so much that like, punks were punk. Metal guys were metal, hardcore guys were hardcore, your emo guys were emo, but now it's kind of melted together. But, I think of, like bands like, like when I think of that first Norma Jean record, right? So, I mean, you've got all these guys that are great musicians, but they're really just putting together these just like disgusting, thrashy, heavy songs. And it's not really showcasing their ability as much as musicians as it's just kind of more guttural, like emotional, angsty kind of music. Whereas when you think of more progressive music, you kind of think, just like you said, it's more about the virtuosity of musicians, and it's more about all of these. It's not about here's a part, here's a riff, here's a breakdown. It's more about how we can fit everything together, which I think is great. So other than Dream Theater, let's say, were there any other like kind of prog musicians that you kind of felt helped you kind of space together your love for this kind of music and that kind of deal?
Yeah, I mean, from there, like it was that was like basically just opening the door and then like falling down a hole, like that was just the beginning. So from there it was Opeth, and then it was Between the Buried and Me, and it just got like progressively heavier and heavier and heavier, and we learned it didn't have to be like this goofy sort of power metal sort of Dream Theater vocal, which we all started to stray away from, and we realized that these like progressive elements existed in heavier scenes. And like I said, Opeth, Between the Buried and Me, and then the Dillinger Escape Plan, and then we started from bands like Dillinger getting into sort of the even more angular and chaotic stuff. So then it became Converge, and then like that whole world. So I think because we are influenced by so many scenes, but it's always rooted in progressive music, we want to take the sort of emotional approach to something like Converge or Dillinger that was just so visceral and so angry and so energetic, but combine it with this interesting sort of like calculated approach musically, like Tool or BT Bam or something like that.
Yeah,
and, like,
sure.
How can we like make ourselves the dirtiest version of prog that we could be? Because like to me, as we got into that stuff in high school, like the stuff like Dream Theater and whatever, and like Periphery and other shit that was getting popular at the time was too polished for me. Even though it was what we grew up on, it just suddenly it was too clean. It was the recording was too perfect, and like the players were too good, and it was like there was something missing about that. Like you said, like about Norma Jean, like that visceral inner kind of thing.
Yeah,
that was just missing. So we're like, how do we take our two favorite things and jam together? And that's sort of how Cryptodira was born. It was just like this desire to do both, really.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think that's a great thing. I think melding specialties together is fantastic, especially in creating like a soundscape that's just kind of like, I guess the best word to use for it is like it's something that's independent. It's something that's you've got your avenue here, avenue B, avenue C, and you can kind of put them together So I love that. Now, I did want to ask you, just noticing the Dillinger flag in the back there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have you had an opportunity to listen to Puciato's full length?
Yeah,
that was something else, man.
I only listened to the full record once, but I listened to a few of the singles. I guess there's like 3 or 4 singles or whatever that came out. A couple of those I jammed a bunch of times, and it's really cool. You can tell what that record is, at least in my estimation. It's like a book of everything he wanted to do, even if it didn't matter that it didn't make sense next to it. Because like I love, I don't know if you ever listened to Black Queen, his other project. It's like that sort of like it's like a Depeche Mode kind of thing. It's like totally different, electronic. His voice really shines, and I absolutely 100% love it. And some of those moments on that new record that sound like Nine Inch Nails or Depeche Mode or something are all Black Queen. And then there's some songs that sound like Dillinger B-sides. Like he even has Chris Penny playing on the songs too. And so it's like awesome, a little, I don't want to say like incohesive, but like I kind of love it. Like there's an entropy to it that like, oh shit, okay, that sounds like a Dillinger song. But then he's like, okay, that next song is almost like a pop song. So it's like a little like scatterbrain, but I don't mind that necessarily. I think it's really cool.
And another thing with Dillinger, just as a growing up as a drummer, it was like I was always in awe of what Chris Penny was able to do, and it always seemed so strange to me that he went on to play in a band like Coheed, right? I mean, so not to slight Coheed, I mean, you're a great band, but I mean, you're going from playing this absolutely blistering fast but like impeccable drum work to like playing a Coheed chorus on your your ride and your snare, but I mean it's just at the very least Chris Penny was able to translate that into just showing how good he is. He's like, okay, well I can do all this crazy stuff, but I could also just hang in the pocket and be there. But even like Dillinger, when Gil was their drummer and stuff, it was always interesting to see how the rhythm section of that band was able to progress and get a little bit different with each record. I think Dillinger is just one of those bands where we've talked about it on this podcast, but I mean, they're just transcendent in a way that is just, every time I've had the opportunity to see them, I mean, like the intensity has always been there, but, they still can, they have songs like Black Bubblegum, which in itself is like this kind of like weird, almost like, I don't even know. Yeah, it's like a pop song, but it has like this edge to it still. That's just like so. Going back to the word guttural, because that's just like you feel it in there in that bridge where they're just like are kind of blasting through it. Man, I really love it. So
they're a once in a life. They're a band that comes around once in a lifetime. There's nothing before them like it. There's probably going to be nothing after it. Like we steal our bits from Dillinger just as much as the next guy, but we don't pretend to even try to do what that band did. They're next level. I think I've seen that band 13 or 14 times. Like they are like one of the bands I've seen the most in my life because I just could not get enough of it. And we actually had to play with them a couple times too, which was a really,
that's
really
great.
Cool
that's awesome. Yeah, I think the first time I've only seen Dillinger probably 4 or 5 times, but I think the first time I saw them was at the trusty old downtown. And if I remember correctly, I remember them turning off like all of the house lights, and like I think they were just playing with maybe a strobe or something.
Yeah.
But it was like, man, it was unreal that amount of intensity. And so on that note of intensity, I guess let's talk a little bit about some of the the kind of the newer stuff you've been working on. So 2020 obviously was a rough time for a lot of people, but as far as like the horizon is concerned, do you have any particular goals for 2021 that you guys are trying to adapt to, trying to get out there and do?
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky in 2020 to have snuck our record in just before COVID, like really smacked everybody. In January 2020, we were in North Carolina recording our second album with Jamie King, and we got back in like the second week of February or something, and then like within a month the world was fucked. So we had this sort of odd year where it was like, well, what do we do with this record? Do you put the record out, wait till tours come back? Every label on the planet was like, no, let's just wait. We'll wait this one out. Wait till the summer. Okay, now we'll wait till the fall. Okay, well, let's wait till the winter. Then suddenly it became obvious that nothing was changing. It wasn't going to be better. And then it was almost like the philosophy flipped. And, we're not ultimate businessmen. At a certain point, we're just a bunch of creators, and we're like, we just want to get this goddamn record out. We're not going to sit here and wait until, we can go on tour again, which right now we have one on the books that's unannounced for this coming November. So the absolute earliest we're going to be on tour is November 2021.
Yeah.
If everything in the planet falls into place somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this like moment in the summer of late summer of 2020 where we spoke to our label and we're like, listen, guys, what's the story here? Are we waiting until 21 for this record or what? Because we're writing the shit out of a new one. So like,
that's awesome.
We're gonna have a double release show by the time we're able to play shows again. So we got to do something here, and they love the idea. We had a little bit extra music actually, so we told them, well, we have 2 extra songs plus an album. So why don't we do like a single maybe, and then like another digital single, and that'll buy us into 2021. Then we'll do the record, which is called The Angel of History. And they're like, no, better idea. You're going to do the first 2 as an EP. They're going to come out in September 2020, and then we're going to do the record December 2020. And I was like, that's a lot of music. That's a lot of release in like a short amount of time. They're like, let's just go. Like, let's not wait. So we thought it was a cool idea, and we went with it. We did an EP called Better Left Unsaid in September, and then like about a month and change later, we announced the first single of the new album, and like every reaction was like, wait, this is another thing? Like, you just put out a thing. We're like, yeah, but this is like a real thing. The other one was a short thing. This is a real thing. So yes, The Angel of History came out on December 4th, and it was very weird to just, everyone's tired of the COVID conversation, but we just to put an album out and then kind of like look around the room and like, okay, so there's no.
What do we do?
So yeah, it was weird. So as soon as the calendar changed, we were like, well, we gotta think, like, what do we do? We have to be. So we're gonna be doing something that's not quite announced yet, but kind of doesn't really matter. We're gonna be doing like a live stream performance of the whole album. That's
awesome.
Video and audio. I guess consider that announced. I don't know. Who cares? It's 2021, man. Like nothing's dramatic anymore. So yeah, we're gonna be performing the entire album, pro shot audio, pro shot video, and then releasing that as a stream. So we trying to navigate this COVID world with this album is very odd to us. We're a very old-fashioned band. We never did Twitch or anything until this year. We never did any kind of live streaming. We barely even, like, we would just post on Instagram like any other band, and then we go on tour. We are very record tour. It's just how we always did it. It's how all the bands we loved always did it. We were not a new school band. We don't play out of digital amp modelers. We don't do, like, we're just very old school,
Yeah.
So this has been us just trying to learn, like, that it's not something to be resisted necessarily. Like, we started a Twitch channel this year, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and ended up being great. It ended up being a lot of fun. So we're kind of trying now to blend these old and new worlds throughout 2021 to kind of do a new experience with this album that we would have never done with an old one, or if there was no COVID. We probably just would have put out the album and went on tour a bunch, whereas now we're going to do a studio documentary. We're going to do this studio performance. So I think people are actually getting a closer and more inside look at what the band does than ever before, despite being further away from people than ever before. So it's this really weird paradox.
Yeah, and it's one of the more intimate things that I think 2020 has been able to bring us. All of these live streams that are happening, all of these like in-depth looks into the creative process and how it works, and getting to see like things that you wouldn't normally see. Like, I mean, typically, you do a record release show and you kind of like maybe play your greatest hits, right? You get an hour up there and you play this and that, but now we get to experience you guys playing the whole album front to back the way you intended it on record, which I think is super cool. And that's another question I want to ask you. So I know you said you worked with Jamie King, and I mean, that everything that guy's touched is like unbelievable. I mean, he's got all this stuff under his belt, Bit Bam, Human Abstract, like Beloved, all that kind of stuff. So what was the experience like working with him? Like, what did he lend to the process for you guys?
It was very freeing, honestly. It was very liberating. The dude, like you said, is so like well rooted in this kind of music that like I think the tendency of most producers when they work with a band like us is to like, and it's not necessarily a bad instinct, but to kind of reel it in a little bit, because when you're dealing with a band like us that's like shooting off in every direction, it's very like, okay, how do we like get the reins on this thing, pull it in, and make this maybe more accessible, or maybe somebody can hear this and not have to like peel it back so much. Jamie is kind of the opposite. His instinct is just like, yeah, go. Yeah, okay, you want to do a third harmony? Yeah, do it. Okay, so there's like both of you guys are playing in different time signatures at the same time. That's cool. Like, I don't care if it sounds like a mess for 3 bars. Like, we're gonna land this on one. So like, he just kind of gave us the space, honestly, that most producers probably wouldn't do. They'd probably be more like pulling their hair out, like, why the hell would you play that there? Like, the other guy is already going off, so why are you? So it's like, you know, it was really cool to work with a guy who's just like, just the most laid back, chill guy, just back in his chair, just like, all right, man, yeah, man, go ahead, yeah, try that too, yeah, go. Just like you would think like you had all the time in the world with him, even though you're only there for 2.5 weeks, but he gives you this like really relaxed and free environment, and no idea isn't worth trying. He's not the type where he'll never be like, nah, it's stupid, no, don't do that, no, trust me, don't do that. He's more of like, yeah, track it, and then, you know, and then also track the other one, and then track the third one, and then we can just pick it later. We don't have to like know right now. I'm not going to act like a drill sergeant, like I know what I'm talking about and you don't, you know. And that's not to say anybody we ever worked with before did that. We honestly have never had a bad producer experience once. I'm just going more off of what other bands have dealt with.
Sure.
Their first album we did with Randy LaBeouf and Steve Side over at Graphic Nature Audio in New Jersey, and they were fucking legends too. So it's not to say anything about anybody else. It's just that yeah, there's just a special thing about Jamie because he's used to bands like us. There was no surprises. There was no shell shock.
Cool. So I want to take it back just a little bit. So you were talking about all this music that you guys were sitting on and how your label was kind of just like totally supportive. And the label you're talking about is Good Fight. And
yeah,
you guys are actually, so we've talked to Jimmy King, who works for Good Fight, who's like on the, you know, the Good Fight entertainment side. But we haven't talked to an artist that's actually on Good Fight yet. So,
ooh, well, hello.
Yeah, so I'm just curious about, you know, how you ended up on that label, and then also like, what can you tell us about that label? Because it sounds like they have their hands in everything. Like, I was talking to Jimmy about this too, like, and he didn't know, but maybe you know, but they actually have like a sports agency side of the label, and they have a few like NHL stars on it. I'm pretty sue like one of the Van Riemsdykes is on it.
I think JVR's on it. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so like, tell me about that.
I wish I could, to be perfectly honest, but like, so the way Good Fight's structured, from what I'm aware of, and again, if anyone knows who's listening to this that I'm wrong, please call me out, but it's kind of run almost as separate entities. You know, it's the same owner, I believe, Carl Severson, who's he's like the old Ferret Records guy and everything, and he's a Nora.
Yep.
That's, I'm pretty sure the whole idea and structure is his. But they're ran as sort of separate companies. So there's entertainment is, I believe, the everything, and that's broken up into management and label. So management does all the bands and everything. I believe Jimmy works on that side. I don't know Jimmy personally. I never met him, but I think he's manager, right?
Yeah.
So he's on that side, and that's where the sports management and the music management comes from. And then the totally separate business is Good Fight Music, which is the label, which is actually an imprint of E1 Media too, I believe. It's like I guess an imprint's the best word for it.
Yeah.
So for us, like, we almost felt like other people knew more about Good Fight than we did when we signed on with them, because they're sort of like legendary for like being that Ferret Records original sort of thing that turned into Good Fight, which is so legendary for all these old battlecore bands and everything that we didn't even grow up listening to. You know, and like they're putting out like Disembodied records and stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh, they have all these bands," and I was like, "Who? I don't know. I like Contortionists, you know, like they're a Good Fight band, you know, like like that." So when we were looking for a label for our first album, The Devil's Despair, like in like 2015 or something, we were poking around, and our manager talked to, you know, a few of the more, I guess, like household metal record label names and stuff, and they were all friendly to the band and everything, but it had a little bit more of a suit and tie vibe everywhere else, you know. It was a lot of, this band is really cool, but I can't make money on it just yet, so call me when they're big, and then we'll give them the big fat stupid contract, you know. And there was nobody who was willing to put in the work with a band like us, because you don't put out, you know, a weirdo prog metal record and immediately make money. You make it on their 5th record, because the thing about prog that I've noticed in my time listening to it is it's a slow but constant growth for these bands. Like when you look at like Dillinger, for example, when they broke up, they were bigger than they've ever been. They didn't, and their first album, like their first like demo thing before Calculating Infinity didn't blow up. Even Calculating Infinity didn't blow up.
Yeah, not at the time. Not at all.
Yeah, they just got slowly bigger with every record. Same thing with BT Bam. Same thing with Opeth. Opeth's like 5th album they finally got big. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, but you don't lose fans typically. You just kind of, people just like, oh, dude, I've been listening to that band since '99. Like, they just hang on. It's not like putting out maybe like a flashy, like, and again, this is not to step on any other kind of music, but certain other kinds of music, like maybe hardcore or metalcore, it's more of like you put an album out and people can just get on it real quick. Maybe the band's huge for 2 albums and then you don't really hear from them anymore. So that's what a lot of labels are looking for in like a social media and streaming age, where they have to make money right away because there's not money for this kind of investment. So we understand it from their perspective, but a lot of these labels weren't interested in putting in the time for us. They wanted our 5th album, not our 1st. So or they wanted us for like 7 albums to basically be like, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna be in it for the long haul, baby, and you're not going anywhere.
You're like the Josh Bailey of bands, is what you're trying to tell me.
Dude, that's such a cool title to have because I fucking love Josh Bailey. So
but like,
we chatted with
like 6 years ago, you probably didn't love Josh Bailey.
Dude, I don't think. I don't know. Like I'm kind of always been a little bit of a Josh Bailey apologist. Like even when he stunk, I'm not gonna say I didn't dog on the guy. Like I absolutely dogged on him. Who didn't, you know? So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, no, I always thought he was sick. But like I always wanted him to be sick. I'll put it that way. I would be like, man, I can't stop. I can't watch you touch the puck because you're so goddamn soft. But I want you to be good because he was supposed to be good. And then it took him like 7 years. But anyway, Josh Bailey rocks. So when Good Fight did chat with us initially, there was a totally different vibe. It was just like, you know, Will Putney, who owns Graphic Nature Audio, we did a demo at his studio, and he showed it to Carl at Good Fight. And was like, dude, this weirdo band just came through my spot, and like, I think you need to listen to it, you know? And they were just like, whoa, this is some weird shit. But like, there was a genuine like appreciation for it, where they were willing to eat the shit with us in the beginning and be like, yeah, like our manager always told us it's not about the name of the label that you're on or anything that you recognize or whatever. It's just that you need a label that believes in your band. And Good Fight showed immediate belief in the band, where they're like, we like weird stuff. We had the Contortionists, and look how big that band got. Like, we had bands like you before, but we also have metalcore bands. We also have deathcore bands. We also have hardcore bands. So when you look at Good Fight's lineup, to me, it says that they just signed bands they like. They're not trying to create necessarily like, oh, we're this kind of label, you know. That was like immediately attractive to us, and then when the talks just kind of snowballed from there, and just it felt like a very safe place to be, and it's been an awesome partnership with them.
Yeah, you know, you always hear from all of the episodes we've done and talking to all different musicians from all different types of alternative music, you really hear one of two things. It's either, oh, we're working with this label and we love them, and they're just so supportive of us, and we you know we get everything we need from them, or you kind of hear like, you know, they just don't really know what to do with us. And you always hate to hear that, because there's such great creativity out there in the world. And if you sign to a label that, you know, maybe flashes you some cash, or they originally tell you that they want to be behind you, and then, you know, first record doesn't do as great as they hoped, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're ready for our second record now, and they're like, cool, man, like okay, fine, like here's $100, go record it. And you're like, you know, so it's such a bummer when we hear that kind of stuff. But, you know, for the most part, knowing that, you know, some of our favorite artists have the backing of people that are actually willing to support them, and not only like support them monetarily, but just support them in terms of their vision and creativity. Because you hear all these stories, you know, of pop labels like being so nitpicky about, okay, well, this is what we need. This is the record that we need because this record is going to sell us 100,000 copies. It's nice to know that, you know, Good Fight is willing to say, okay, well, you know, you guys, you know, create the art that you want, and then, you know, we'll back it and it'll sell. You know, it'll just kind of rock through. So I love to hear that. So another question I have to want to ask you about your new record. I know on one of the last tracks on the record, you guys had the vocalist of Moontooth do a little bit of a something. And I mean, I kind of want to say this, but I don't want to like ruffle any feathers. But it's almost like here you guys are, and like I feel like Moontooth is kind of like your little brother.
Oh no way.
In a way. No, I don't mean that in like a sense of like riding coattails or anything, but I just feel like, you know, you guys are both, even though you're very, very different in the way you sound, you guys are both kind of in that prog space. And I feel like you guys kind of stepped out and were kind of noticeable. And then maybe Moontooth was like, wow, you know, if Cryptodira is doing it, like, let's do it. And obviously now they're on Pure Noise and doing their whole thing. But I love them. They're great people. I mean, Vin is awesome. Love him to death.
It's his birthday today, actually. So happy
birthday.
Oh, is it?
Vin. Yeah, well, happy birthday, man. Come on, and you know we'll talk to you too. We'll talk to everybody. It was but so did you guys, like, when you had written that song, was it written for like a feature, or did you just figure like, we can get him on here somehow, and this is where we want to do it?
So like, it's an interesting way we write, because I actually, and neither does Mike, the other vocalist, we don't write the lyrics. Our drummer Matt does, actually.
Oh wow,
that's interesting.
He's like a total, he's like our Neil Peart of our band. Like if anyone's into Rush, he's like a total, like just a genius. He's one of the smartest guys I know. He's a philosophy student, he's a psychology student, and he writes all of our lyrics about critical theory. So like all the things you had to do in school that you didn't want to do, like open a textbook and write notes, he does it for fun, like all the time. He has notebooks that are like this big that are just full of notes. And like they're so sacred to him, he like photocopies them and shit in case anything ever happens to them. Wow. Because like it's all of his life's work is just like in this stuff. It's super cool. So he writes all the lyrics, and when we got to that part, we were demoing it, and I did the singing obviously for the whole song, and then and it's a very low register part, and John from Moontooth has this super like sort of smoky voice. Yeah. And after we did it, like Matt was just like, dude, I could totally hear like John singing that part. And I was like, well, all we have to do is ask him. Like we don't have to like use about this. We can just do it. That band is like you alluded to it. Oh, Islanders just scored, by the way. It's 4-0.
Dude, so
let's go.
You have it on in the background, and it's so distracting for me, because I'm like, I think something just happened important. So you can see me on my phone, like trying to refresh. But thank you for the update.
Side note is actually, it's funnier because my TV's behind me. For obviously anyone listening can't see this, but my TV's behind me. My computer and laptop interface are in front of me. My desk does not move because it's mounted into the wall. So I'm like, how am I going to watch the game while I'm doing this if it's behind me? So I also have it on in front of me on my cell phone, which nobody can see right now. Excellent. But because that's on a stream, it's like a minute behind what's behind me. So Mike might actually see the Islanders score before I react, because that's cable, which is live, and this is like a minute behind. So.
You know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen with this, right? Is like little old Bardown breakdown, because that little screen has the game on it. NHL is just going to totally. We're going to get cease and desist.
Demonetized and everything.
Oh my God.
Barry Trotz is going to yell at us. He's going to be like, get that off your screen.
99th episode, the Wayne Gretzky episodes, I get your podcast shut down because I'm a moron.
Right, dude. Dude, this is totally the Wayne Gretzky episode, and because it's the Wayne Gretzky episode, let's talk a little bit about Wayne Gretzky. So, I can share, obviously, you know, being in my 30s, that even though I know that, you know, he was an Oiler and he was a king, of course. You know, my waking moments are of Gretzky playing on the Rangers.
Sure, yeah.
So of course, for me, you know, growing up and seeing this phenomenal player on the Rangers, I remember being so jealous. Yeah. Just being like, well, where's our great player? You know, why does he get to be on the Rangers? You know, where's our great player? And, you know, that's that like 8 or 9 year old mentality, you know, just like not really understanding the game. But I think, you know, for Gretzky, I mean, like, it's just, you know, you go where the money is, of course, right? I mean, especially in that part of your career. But I mean, you know, playing for one of the original 6, you know, in the Garden, which is like kind of the mecca of sports, as they say, must have been really kind of a flashing allure for him, especially being in New York. So I guess I'll shoot it over to you, Scott, first. Like, what are your Gretzky memories?
So I'm a little younger. I'm 27. So my, like you said, my like waking hockey moments definitely involve Wayne being a Ranger. Yeah. My most specific Wayne Gretzky memory is actually watching his last game ever. That is ironically probably my first Wayne Gretzky memory, is being at my brother's friend's house, who was a Rangers fan, and watching his last game and the whole like little ceremony after the game and everything, and not understanding the gravity of that moment. And then many years later, kind of having saw that game again, and I'm like, oh, I kind of remember all this, like the waving at the crowd and everything. And then kind of just as I got older, I just dug so much into hockey lore. Like it just became, I was such a fan just as a kid of just the Islanders. But then probably when I was like, I want to say like 10 or 11 years old, I started to like dig a little more into other teams. And then I begged my parents to buy NHL Center Ice when I was like 14, so I could watch all the teams in the NHL, because I was enjoying watching Islanders games so much. But it only happened a couple times a week that I started to get addicted to like watching everything. And I was like, you gotta buy me this, you know. So then from there, I got the NHL Network that came with it, and I started watching all the programming they had on like off season or like games where there's no nights where there's no games and stuff. And they had all these features on Gretzky, and they started showing old Islanders and Oilers games. And of course, since I'm an Islanders fan, I was watching the Gretzky era Oilers against the Islanders, and just to watch him play at such a level that I was like so different than the guys around him, I started to feel like watching him in the early 80s, he was playing like guys were playing in the 90s almost like what I remembered as a kid. And I'm like, I'm starting to understand why this guy was as good as he was. Not that he was the super fastest player or whatever. And obviously I was used to watching like the early 2000s Islanders and like other teams at the time that like the speed seemed so slow to me watching the 80s, obviously. But Gretzky, his brain was always like 5 steps ahead of the play.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
He was doing moves that guys weren't doing for 10 more years. And just the way he like operated behind the net and everything, he just like was the first like super creative player that I remember like seeing from that era anyway.
And I think one of the things that I'll kind of throw your way, Mikey. So, you know, looking at those 80s era Gretzky like stats is just like makes you want to throw up. You know, we're talking like 215 points, 210 points, 212 points. Obviously, the game a lot different in the 80s than it is now. But do you think that there will ever be another hockey player that can put together those kind of numbers?
No. And I was telling Scott this, you know, before we even started recording. Yes, the game was different, but also the style of goaltending was different. And, you know, that's why he was able to put up, you know, so many points. Is like, first off, goalie equipment was like basically what, you know, forwards wear these days. Like they really weren't bulky pads or anything. So like the amount of net that was open was a lot more than it is now. And, you know, I also just think that, you know, that the fact that they were using wooden sticks.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't really even ripping slappers like you see you're seeing with these composites.
They're on the ice.
yeah, exactly. Like all his goals were like on the ice still. Like the puck didn't even really lift off the ice. So it was a totally different game. I think if Ovechkin played at that time, maybe we'd be talking about him as being the greatest goal scorer of all time. But
I think he already is. I honestly, I think Wayne Gretzky will always be the best player of all time, especially numerically. But I think, because I look at eras in proportion, right? So like I try not to fall victim to like if so and so played in so and so era, he would crush them. Because if Ovechkin played in the 80s, Ovechkin would play like he played in the 80s because he would have grown up in the 80s with the same gear and the same style and this. So I kind of look at things like almost like a formula, like, and this is just completely bullshit numbers, but like a 50-goal season for Alex Ovechkin is maybe a 72-goal Teemu Selanne rookie style season in the 80s. So like I almost try to take one goal and like multiply it by like 1 point something or other. I'm sure there's already nerds who have done the math on this. But to me, if you look at Ovechkin's goal scoring numbers anyway, not his points, not his whatever, but his goal scoring numbers, I think if he stopped playing today, he's already the best goal scorer of all time. I don't think there's anything you can take away from him. The guy started playing in the dead puck era, and obviously things have opened up a little bit in the last couple of years, but as he's aging, it's not changing, which is like really fucking bizarre to me. And the fact that we're in the year 2021, and yes, it's going to be a real difficult chase, especially with shortened seasons due to COVID and whatever else. But the fact that he's even having this conversation about catching Gretzky is psychotic. Like, that's a crazy conversation. Not that it's crazy that it's, like, not possible. It's crazy that it's so possible that we're having the conversation. To me, if you're going to have that conversation, that means you're already the best goal scorer of all time.
And I think, you know, Alex Ovechkin, the thing with him is, I mean, he's pretty much made of like vodka anyway. So I mean, like, I feel like the guy can probably play until he's 60 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if realistically he can't, you know, the son of a bitch is going to try.
Yeah,
you know,
he's
that's one thing
for sure.
Yeah, he really is.
You know, you think about this like weird off season that we had. He was playing in Russia. You know, he did not want to stop playing, and he absolutely loves the game. Now that he has a little one, and he's teaching his little one how to play the game as well, I feel like that's sparked the love of hockey again. And I don't see him going away. And if he does go away, he's just going to go back to Russia and play in the KHL for another 20 years.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
And to me, like, he's more of a miracle of modern science than most people even think, because the way he, like, Yager playing till he's 50 million years old makes sense to me because he always played the game like it was in slow motion, and he utilizes his range and his size so well that he's able to kind of keep the mileage off his body a little bit. Ovechkin plays like a wrecking ball. And that's why I actually can't believe he hasn't slowed. Like, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, wait till that guy's like a couple of years past 30, you're going to see a steep drop off. I'm happy to eat those words because, like, it's crazy. I mean, this guy literally, I mean, he's like a pinball, like the way he bounces off guys. He's like, what, 35 now? He was drafted.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
15 years ago. Yeah, maybe he's 30. No, he's 34, I think. Whatever it is. It's like, he still plays that same style, which usually those guys they hit a wall. And maybe it could still happen, but, like, I really hope it doesn't, because I'm not the type of Islanders fan who's like, listen, I know they've had plenty of battles with the Caps, and I don't like the team, the Washington Capitals, but I am such an Ovechkin fan. I love that player so much.
And it's a testament to him as a player as well. You know, that whole series against the Capitals, like, no matter how you know, the perception was that the Islanders had it in hand, every time Ovi touched the puck, you just kind of like your butthole puckers up a little bit. Yeah. You're just like, oh shit, oh no, oh shit, because that's how dangerous he is. And I mean, and he even not that he did it enough, but he did it, you know, a couple of times enough to just show, like, hey, like, I'm still who I am, you know. So I think that's one of the things about him. Now, what I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is, so now we're coming into like another era of hockey. As far as, you know, some of the quote unquote young bucks that are playing the game now, who do we think has the potential to be like the next Ovi? You know, who could be the next real phenom in this game?
I'm not sure about an Ovi style player specifically for going by playing style, but in terms of like taking the game by storm, I mean, I feel like it's hard to even know these things are happening until you look back at them. But Connor McDavid was already one of the best players to play in the NHL ever. Yeah. Like, again, we're living in him already right now, and his team isn't all that great. I mean, they've been okay, but like, they're not making all kinds of waves, so it's maybe difficult to look at it from that perspective. But watching McDavid play the game, it's clear, like, this is another style player like Crosby or Ovechkin, where they literally ushered in, like you said, like a whole new era of style of player, of guys who just, I mean, I have never seen a guy get on his horse as fast as McDavid. And I shouldn't even say as fast as, but because there's been guys probably maybe as fast as Connor McDavid in the NHL, maybe. But it's not about necessarily his foot speed by itself, but while he's carrying the puck. I have never seen a guy at that speed have that kind of control over the puck. Like, Michael Grabner's a fast player. He looks like he's like standing on like ice cream Mendoza sandwiches. Yeah. And like, it's So like, you know, you hit him with like a perfect breakaway pass, and like, he just like falls down. It's not the same, you know. The way he, like, McDavid has full 100% like puck on the string control at like 1 billion miles an hour is I've never seen anything like that in my entire life, ever.
Yeah, I think that what's his name, Struzal from
Stützle. Yeah,
dude. I was watching a few of those World Junior games, and it just so happened to be that, like, you know, obviously, you know, the Germanys and the Switzerlands were playing at like that 5 o'clock window, you know, earlier in the evening, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna cook dinner and have an excuse to watch hockey while I do it. So like, I watched a bunch of those games, and I'm not gonna lie, man, he impressed me.
Stützle's sick.
Yeah, he played an Ovechkin style of hockey, like going coast to coast, laying the body on the line, like. just a ridiculous tape job, like the most ridiculous tape job ever. And I just was super impressed. I think Ottawa's got a stud with that one.
Yeah, he's 100% like the real fucking deal. No question about it. And fucking Trevor Zegras was unbelievable for Team USA too. Like really just a cool team, man. Like I had so much fun watching the tournament this year. It was just fantastic. The last game was really cool too. I mean, like I honestly felt terrible for Canada. Those kids looked like their hearts were ripped out in front of it was like everyone on Canada looked like their dog just got shot in front of them.
Because they get like death threats. Like legit death threats from crazy 50-year-olds in their mom's basements. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. It was fucking. After America won, I was upset. I was just like, man, this sucks. Like I wanted Canada to win just so they didn't have to feel that way.
Yeah,
it's like
for sure.
Or whatever. It was rough. But
That's
there was
tournament, man.
I love it.
I just wish that they would travel more, like the host cities. Mm-hmm. I feel like Buffalo gets it like every other year, or
sure, yeah.
I would love to see Carolina get it, or a non-traditional hockey market get the tournament to just help grow international hockey. Like obviously Canada's gonna get tune in no matter what. Canada's gonna tune in, but in the United States, unless you are a die-hard hockey fan, you're not really watching that tournament. Yeah. So if they could just go to an Arizona or even one of the California arenas, I think it'd be great for growing hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it too is accessibility of being able to watch it. Like this year, NHL Network had every game. They usually do, but you have to pay extra for NHL Network. It's not on NBC. It's not on like a major national American channel. So I think once they're able to make that leap, if they are, you're going to see a pretty big jump. But I'm sure there's somebody who makes a lot more money than me who knows why that can't happen or something. But in my estimation, that would be more.
And it's like it's kind of a bummer to think that the ESPN family of networks, and I mean, they have a contentious relationship with the NHL and hockey anyway. But I mean, think about all of the coverage the Little League World Series gets, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like it's literally never-ending coverage on the Little League World Series, and they're talking about here's Johnny Jr. and he loves hot dogs, and his favorite band is Metallica, and it's just like, imagine if they gave just an inkling of that coverage to the juniors, because it would at least be diverse, and it would give them a little bit more of like a programming edge. But it just ever since. I guess it was probably the lockout in the 2000s. Just like ESPN was just like, fuck hockey, fuck you guys. Like we're just gonna we're literally and it just every single time it's like the Stanley Cup normally not in COVID, but the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals usually run concurrent or at least close to one another, and like they would cover like the NBA Finals ad nauseum. They would literally be like. Breaking news, like LeBron James is wearing like red shoelaces today. Like, oh my God. Oh, and by the way, the Blues just won the Stanley Cup. You don't give a shit about that. Anyway, back to LeBron sneakers. It's just like, it's such a bummer because hockey is just going to stay that fourth sport. And it sucks because there's so much grit and intensity. And I really was hoping that the past playoffs and how they pulled it off and how all of these players were able to contain themselves in the bubble and not have issues was really going to bring up hockey stock. And maybe that remains to be seen, but as it looks like right now, it's just the same old shit where they're like, we as hockey fans are like, oh, hockey season, man, this is the greatest time of year. But no one else could be bothered. And it's such a bummer. Really is a bummer.
It can be, but you're definitely right, literally, in all that. What I do take solace in, much like the weirdo prog bands, is that despite it not getting that massive jump or bump, it's always consistently gotten bigger still, though. The NHL's revenue has never gone down pretty much in our lifetimes. So while it might be a very slow growth, it is happening. And I think that new TV deal that's supposed to come up with the new CBA or whatever could definitely probably change a lot of that. But you know what it is, like maybe it's just like the little like us against the world mentality, but I kind of love it just being mine. You know, like I obviously would much prefer the game to grow. But as it stands, it's like, you know what? It's just a little bit more unique. It's just one more thing about like my selfish personality that's a little bit more mine than being a football fan or something. And I think all sports are cool, man. But I'd encourage everyone who's not a hockey fan. I'm always like, dude, I know it might be a little weird on TV if you're not used to it. Come to a game with me. Just like let me bring you to one hockey game. You will be a fan before you leave, and I guarantee it. And I've done it with friends. I mean, I've had so many friends. I even have friends from overseas that came from England, who just started watching games with us on tour, like on our laptops, and then actually a couple of them came to a game with us. There's a great band called Rollo Tomasi that we've toured with a few times, who are like our best friends. They're from the UK, and one of their guys, Chris, came over like a couple of years ago, and just for like a vacation, and we're like, dude, we're taking an Islanders game, and he was like, just beside himself. Like he's like, I've never seen it. And he's a huge soccer fan, and obviously soccer is like the most psychotic fans on earth. Like I think they win that title for sure. But like just 100%. Like the game itself, he was like, this is insane. And he watched games with us on our laptops, and he thought it was cool. But it's just something about going to a hockey game. I even have friends that are like big fans of like basketball and football and stuff who are like, dude, I'm a way bigger football fan, but my favorite game to go to is a hockey game. I think it's just like unanimously at least, and again, it's obviously a matter of opinion, but I think it just is objectively the best sport to watch live. It's just so intense.
Now, I want to jump in there because you mentioned, you know, how you just need to go to get that one game experience. So can you tell us like what your first experience was that got you hooked?
I wish I had a great answer for it where I remembered, but I really don't. My earliest memory, though, is my dad taking me to an Islanders and Rangers game, though, in the late 90s. I don't know. I was too young. I don't remember who they were playing. I have no idea what year it was. I just know it was the late 90s, and I remember being in the old barn and just, like, watching just the noise factor, if anything, got me, of just, like, every time they touched the puck, catching a pass, and, like, the rake microphones pick up that crisp, like, ice sound. And I think there's just something so unique about it, and my dad exposed me to all sports. He's a hockey fan, but he's actually more of a football fan and a baseball fan. So, but he watches every sport. So when I was a kid, he just, you know, I watched Knicks games. I was a kind of a Chicago Bulls fan for a little bit when I was a kid. I gave up on all that like years ago, but you know, I had Jets jersey. I haven't watched football in years, but like he gave me sort of the open palette, my dad. I was like, whatever you want, man. Like these are all the sports, you know? And hockey just sucked me in, man. It was something about it, it wasn't on green grass. There was something just about the fact that you had to learn how to walk again to play. You know, any other sport, you strap on your cleats and, okay, you're walking and running. You get on a hockey rink, dude, step one, like, it's like learning how to walk again. And then you have to play a game. And there's something about this cold, wintry environment, and the sound was so different. And it was just stood out. It didn't look or sound or feel like any other major American sport. So my brain just magnetized to that. And my brother was a huge Sigmund Palffy fan when we were growing up, so he got me really into Islanders, and now I'm a bigger fan than him. He just watches casually now, but I'm like the one who's like pulling my hair out over games every single week, you know. But just my family just sort of got me into it, but I'm always been that way where like I might not gravitate to everything, but when I do pick the things I like, I'm like psychotic about it. I don't like many things casually.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I have a crazy addictive personality, so I'm definitely the same way. But
for sure.
I guess what I'm also curious about, since you live out in Mount Sinai, which, you know,
I don't live there anymore.
Okay.
But I'm still near there. I'm in Middle Island now, south there. But sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, either way, you know, that's still a hike to the Coliseum. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then especially when they played in Brooklyn. Like, did you make that trek to Brooklyn ever?
Always. Yeah. Always. Didn't bother me at all, because the way I looked at it was like whether I'm driving down like a million highways to get to the Coliseum or I'm jumping on a train to Brooklyn. Like obviously the train situation was a little bit longer as a journey, but it was almost easier because I wasn't driving. You know, I could just crack beers on the train and hang out. So it's like, yeah, the experience was longer, but it was also easier. So like, I don't know. I was obviously devastated when I found out they were going to be moving out of the Coliseum and into Brooklyn. Not because I was not a Barclays hater. I was not a Brooklyn hater. I think fans got way too babyish about that. Like, obviously, it wasn't an ideal situation. It wasn't an arena that was built for hockey. We're not used to having to go into the city for games. Obviously, it was just a whole big different thing, so I understand the gut reaction. But I always kept reminding other fans, like, dude, it was this or, like, go to the Midwest. So, like, just be grateful that the Barclays Center existed and was willing to take in this team. Granted, it was a rocky relationship and, you know, all kinds of other crap that ended up going on, but, like, I didn't hate the Barclays Center. Like, yeah, okay, there's the weird section. You don't sit in the weird section. It was always empty. You can't see the net. It wasn't built for hockey. We already established this. Let's move on and enjoy the game. I'm just more of an optimistic person when it comes to that kind of shit, where, like, I don't know, did I want it to be permanent? No, and then it wasn't. So it's fine. I look at it like when you need, like, you have a weird patch in your life and you live in, like, a crappy spot for a while, and then, like, you get a nicer house or something. Like, and it wasn't a bad place. It wasn't like it was this rundown arena. It just wasn't built for hockey. It's the only, and it wasn't anyone's fault. It was a basketball arena that we're very lucky to have had, because we may have been the Kansas City fucking who knows by now. So.
No, for sure. And then I guess the next question I have then, you know, you guys are also in a unique spot where you are so close to the Port Jeff Ferry.
Yeah.
So did you take that trip to Sound Tigers games? Because, like, I feel like when the Islanders acquired the Sound Tigers and, like, created that AHL team, they were like, oh, people from Long Island are going to go there all the time. They're going to jump on the ferry. And Tom and I have done it. Like, it is actually a lot of fun. But even even us, where we were from in Deer Park, we would have to drive, you know, 30 to 40 minutes to Port Jeff and then get on an hour ferry. And it's like, man, that's like almost 2 hours or so of my night to
Dude,
just go.
I don't feel bad for you.
Well, yeah, but you know, from Mount Sinai, you know, that's
it was easy. Yeah,
it was easy, and then you got, you know, an hour ferry ride where you can go to the bar on there and crush beers.
I love the ferry ride, dude. It was awesome. I actually could take it one step further. One of my best friends worked for the ferry for years. They had a partnership with Bridgeport, and they get free tickets, and then he would also get me on the ferry for free. So for a $0 day, sometimes I would just jump on the ferry, go to see a Sound Tigers playoff game in the Skybox for $0, and then just come home. It was all it did was cost me the price of beer for my buddy, and that was it. So, yeah, I only got to do it like 3 times, I think. But it's such a cool thing. For as close as we are to it, I really wish that I've done it more, but they're still there. So there's nothing that's stopping me from going to do it more. He doesn't work for the ferry anymore, so it won't be free, but it's still ultimately an AHL game that will be pretty cheap. But I'm used to doing the long treks, man. Like, I would, for Barclays games, try to run Ronkonkoma, which was like 20 minutes, and then, you know, get on like a 2-hour train ride, or probably about an hour and a half to Atlantic, to Jamaica, and then
go to Atlantic. Yep.
You know, the whole thing in reverse. So, like, I was used to, like, 4 hours round trip of traveling for an Islanders game, but it's just, you know, whatever. Like, I look at it as I'm not going to an Islanders game like I'm turning it on at my house and it's casual. It's going to be my whole night, so I don't really care. Fans are really, really, really big on complaining. I'm not as big on complaining.
And I mean, look, like let's be real. Like, that Barclays Center, like, when you go for a game, you just go to that Buffalo Wild Wings and you just get hammered.
Yeah,
right at that Buffalo Wild Wings. Yeah, no, and I think you know, obviously Ranger fans have no sympathy for you whatsoever, because that's all they've ever done.
Well, dude, honestly, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but that's why I always get so mad about the Islanders fans, is that most teams in general in sports are in major markets, right? So they're in cities. So fans either have to take public transportation or whatever to get to them. We were spoiled to be a suburban team that you can drive up to from a parkway, pull into a big old parking lot, and then get your ass in the arena and then drive home. Like, that's not the case for most teams. So I was like, okay, so for a few years we have to be a regular team. I'm like, okay. Like, it's what it is. You know, like, and then, you know, I don't want to hear that building better be full when they open up Belmont, because all people did was whine and complain about getting them. Like, obviously it's still further west than the Coliseum, but they're back officially, quote unquote, on Long Island. You can still drive to it now because there's the big old parking lot and everything. That arena better be goddamn full of every person who said, I'm not going to Brooklyn, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, then you better go to Belmont, because they built a whole ass arena for you.
Oh, they're going to, you know, there's going to be people like, oh, I hate Northern State. I hate the Northern State.
Too long to drive. The train station's a nightmare, because they're going to try to open up that Belmont Station or whatever. Like, people are always going to find something to complain about. And was the Barclays Center my favorite place to watch a hockey game? Absolutely not, by any stretch of the imagination. But every time I was there, I was just like, yeah, man, like, my team's here, so I'm going to watch the game and get into it. You could put me in the goddamn local rink watching the Islanders. Like, and that's why, like, I think the bubble thing translates better to hockey than it does from most sports. I'm watching the empty fan games, and obviously it's not the same, but I find that it's so much less distracting at a hockey game than when I watch any other sport. Where, like, I watch football, I'm like, dude, it's like the fans are gone, the whole vibe is just cut off. But hockey, like, you just sort of tunnel vision into the intensity of the game because the game generates so much of its own energy that it's not like a lot of other sports that rely on, like, screaming and yelling constantly, you know?
I agree 1,000%. And I think, with the empty arena for hockey, I especially when they funneled in a little bit of the crowd noise, there were times where I didn't even, like, remember that there were no fans in it. And that was during the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for sure.
I think it definitely did translate well with the no fans, for sure. So, I guess, we're coming up on an hour now. So, I guess, fill us in, Scott. Where do you think the Islanders are going this year? What's your prediction?
Like, if my bandmate Mike hears this, he's gonna kill me and call me a liar because, like, he always paints me, and he's, to be fair to him, he's kind of right as a pessimistic person, but that's, like, seems to be minute to minute for me in the grand scheme of things. As an Islanders fan, I am an optimist. I do think this team is very good. Does it have its shortcomings and problems? Without a doubt. They're not a perfectly constructed team by any stretch of the imagination. I'm absolutely dog shit at predictions, so I will just cop out here and say them getting back to the conference finals absolutely within the realm of possibility. I'm not going to sit here and say New York Islanders Stanley Cup champions 2021, but I don't think, based on the way hockey is played and how it's kind of any given team on any given night, I don't see why not. And I don't think getting back to the conference final as a goal is, by any stretch of the imagination, like, out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. It's definitely not untenable. So I'm going to read you a text message that I sent on a couple of text messages that I sent, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this is how it read. Now, I'm already wrong. My first prediction is wrong, but this is my Islanders prediction for the first 6 weeks. Ready? It goes like this. January 14th, boys. 3-1 loss to the Rangers. Rebounding with 4 straight wins.
Okay.
Then an integral member of the roster goes down for a month. Fans panic. We lose 2 out of 3. Fans panic more. Then a Bridgeport call-up gets smoking hot, and the Isles win the next 7-9. Then I said, print it. I'm like Matt Christopher writing sports stories. So I mean, I hate it. I love it. But, I think the one thing that you can plausibly say about the Islanders, especially seeing what we're seeing with this game that we're watching now, is there can be brilliance with this team. And I think it means something that, the Islanders didn't go out and make these humongous blockbuster deals to get, the free agents that were out there, because I think between Lou and Trotz, they had enough, enough love for the team, and they have enough confidence in the team that with enough time, these guys can be like a superpower. So I don't think it's completely unrealistic to hunger for the Islanders to get back to the conference finals. I don't want to jinx anything, but I mean, teams like the Lightning and the Bruins are still powerhouse teams. But I mean, if the Islanders can keep healthy and pull their shit together, I mean, I really think that they can give the Lightning a run for their money and maybe even see a cup final. And if you say that, I feel like the East, especially now the way the divisions are divided, well, they're the same divisions, but I think the East is stronger than the West. Mm-hmm. I feel that way. So I think that if the Islanders can make it to a cup final, I think they got a real shot to hoist the cup. So realistically, they're out in the first round because I'm a pessimistic Islander fan. So that's just what I got to say. But I think that this season, like I said, it's going to be different, but it's going to be very, very cool for hockey fans. It's going to be a lot of real, I think, tight, just like hard-nosed hockey, and I think it's going to be great. And I think the Islanders are going to end up prevailing in a way that is really cool for the future of the franchise. I do.
Yeah, I mean they're a team with a lot of shortcomings. Like I'm also a realistic Islanders fan, despite being a one who wants them to be really good. Mm-hmm. They are not a very. It sounds like a crazy thing to say, like to some people, but they're not a very talented team as far as the NHL goes by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. But they have the number one asset that they've always been missing as long as I've been a fan, and that is a very solid structure and system. And Mike and I, my guitar player Mike, always agree with this. Yes, I want them to have a higher scoring punch for sure. I think the Islanders are in desperate need of a talented goal-scoring winger. But while the NHL is trending in that direction of high-flying, speed-based hockey and skill and speed, it's 100% more important than it was when I was a kid growing up. But still, the number one thing in hockey is a good system. No matter what, if you don't have good coaching and a good system, that's what the NHL is based off of. But now when you watch the World Junior and stuff, you're watching a lot of individual skill, a lot of team passing, lots of really, really cool and fun, high-paced hockey. But then the reason why a lot of these players don't translate to the NHL is because maybe they can't get out of that, frame of mind and into this sort of circular grind that is the NHL. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what the Islanders have is a near-perfect structure to a point where you're able to then sort of shelter their flaws. Like when you have a defender or a forward who's not all that good or all that talented, you sort of create this plug-and-play situation where, okay, the Islanders have to trade a guy like Devon Toews. Heartbreaker. Love the guy. He's a great mobile defenseman. Your team is empirically worse by having had to trade him without a real replacement. I don't want to say not a real replacement because the idea is Noah Dobson comes in and becomes that sixth defenseman. But they're able to do that with a degree of confidence that when you take out one really important cog and plug in a 20-year-old like Noah Dobson, because the system is so strong, it's less about the individual, more about the sum of its parts. And that's why the team, I think, is successful. I mean, they're really, look at them top to bottom. Like, Jordan Eberle's in their top line. I'm a Jordan Eberle apologist. I think he's better than he's been. But he's not really a top-line right winger on most Stanley Cup winning teams. He's not. And even Anders Lee, despite being the captain of the team, is not a top-line left winger on most hockey teams in the NHL. But again, because of the sort of plug-and-play nature that they've been able to create by just having such a smart top-to-bottom system, makes them a threat on any given night. So it makes them unpredictable, that's for sure. Because you don't look at the roster and go, like, that's a team that's going to win the Stanley Cup. You don't look at them like the Washington Capitals or Tampa Bay Lightning or Colorado Avalanche or something like that, or the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, those teams, you look at their rosters and go, like, yeah, that team's going to make the finals, or they should anyway. With the Islanders, you look at it and you go, and that's why a lot of these like sort of NHL pundits go like, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, but I don't know about them getting anywhere. But it's just, so again, it makes them unpredictable, but it does make them very winnable at the same time. So I have trouble placing them myself and going like, is Leo Komarov going to hoist the Stanley Cup? I don't know. I can't see it, but like maybe he will because the team is just so fucking structured. So I'll take that over most facets of any hockey team. Is just a good structure.
I agree 1,000%. For you nailed it, man. That was some like real hockey analysis. Like you should be on TSN or something, bro. That was good.
I would love to. If I wasn't in a band, not that I make money on it, but my second dream was actually to be in hockey broadcasting because I loved it so much.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you in order to do that though, you have to have that Brendan Burke haircut.
Correct. Yeah.
That like.
Yeah, the cool swoop. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't all have the cool swoop, but Scott, I thank you so much for taking an hour 15 of your time to chat with us, man. It's been great. We wish the best for Cryptodira, everything coming up in the year. The new record is awesome. Definitely if we have any listeners that haven't had an opportunity to check it out, go stream it, go grab it however you happen to do that. I don't know how people do anything lately. I just started buying records again. It's bad news.
Good.
Real bad news.
Good news.
You say that,
no,
but
he
my fiance does not say that.
Also has an addictive personality, and at one point he lived in a studio apartment and had like 1,000 records. So
Dude,
it was real time. It was really happening.
It was bad.
Priorities
you couldn't even walk around in there.
That's
yeah.
Okay.
You could, not only could you not walk around in there, but it had to be kept at like a crisp, like 60 degrees, because God forbid anything warped or melted. It was like I lost a baby. But dude, this episode was dope. This was the Wayne Gretzky episode. Shout out to Wayne Gretzky wherever you are. Shout out to Wayne Gretzky "Sneak Attack," which is a great song by An Autopsy. I don't know if you remember An Autopsy from back in the day.
I remember the name.
Dude, and Justin, I know you're listening. I got heat with Justin from An Autopsy. He wants to come on the show. He said we haven't reached out to him, so he's mad at us. So if you can imagine, we got heat. I don't want heat, but we got the heat. But with the heat comes the smoke, and that's fine. And I really, really, like I said, man, this was so cool. I love doing this. You got the Islanders on in the background. We're beating that Rangers ass. There's nothing
crazy,
better.
Like ninja star fan. Like that thing looks like it's about to take your head off.
Okay, really quick. This is a brand new ceiling fan. It's psychotic. Like,
it is. It's
so my last one just shit the bed on me, right? Like it was a regular ceiling fan, shit the bed.
Insane.
And I was like, time for a new one. So I saw this bizarre, like modern design fan, and in the box it looked kind of cool. It was like a 2-blade, and I was like, that's weird, but I kind of like it. It looked way different when I put it up, so I'm going to move my head so you can see it. It spins in, like, everyone looks at it and goes, is this spinning in the wrong direction? Just look at this fucking weird fan, man.
I hate it.
This thing is like, everyone hates it, but my first thought was, I hate this thing, but it was already up, and I put a lot of work into getting it up. So now I love it, because I think it keeps me on my toes. I think it keeps me honest.
Keeps you honest, yeah.
Like, that thing is calling the shots, and I don't get to decide, so... I'm always at the mercy of the ceiling fan. No, but thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun. And also, Tony DeAngelo, a few minutes ago, took a holding penalty and then had a big old poopy diaper temper tantrum in the penalty box and got a 4-minute penalty instead. Because, like, he's so upset about the election that he's taking penalties. And he was thinking about Parler when Barzell absolutely fucking crossed him up before. So I'm having a great night.
Oh, God, man.
Screw Tony D.
What an absolute piece of shit. What an absolute piece of shit. And that's the best way to end this episode, because that guy is a turd sandwich and a half, man. But
my parting words would be: listen to The Angel of History by the band Cryptodira, and also Tony DeAngelo, fuck you, you big fucking asshole loser.
Dude, that's the soundbite that does it. So, dude, Scott, appreciate you, man. You have a good rest of your night, and Mikey, love you, buddy.
All right.